Dear Miss Jameson, I'm writing a letter to my school librarian. Like my teacher taught us, first you have the salad station. That's where you say their name, like Dear Miss Jameson. Then you say something nice, and then you say the hard part. Okay, so I have the Dear Miss Jameson. Now something nice. Thanks for telling me to read Stuart Little. It is a good book. I liked it a lot. I especially liked that Stuart Little slept in a matchbox. That was fun. Now the hard part. I'm sorry I haven't returned the library book. I know it's overdue. You know that I always return my library books on time, but I can't this time. You see, when I got home from school on Wednesday, Mom was in a tizzy. She was talking to herself and stomping around from room to room and gathering up suitcases and putting them by the front door and just really, really upset about something. And I couldn't understand what she was saying as she was talking to herself. But when she saw me come in the door, she then stopped and she said, "Go to your room now. There's a suitcase on your bed. Put a few more things in the suitcase, whatever you want. Close the suitcase and bring it here." Well, I said, why am I packing a suitcase, Mom? "We're going to Grandma Nancy's in Cincinnati," she said. "Oh, I like Grandma Nancy. That will be fun. Just a minute, though. Tomorrow's a school day. We can't go to Grandma Nancy's today. Tomorrow's school." "Just go to your room and do as I said," she told me. Whew. Well, I did. I went into my room, and sure enough, there was a suitcase on my bed. And I added a couple things. I added a picture of my friend Sally, and I added the jewelry box, the one that Grandma Nancy gave me, the one that when you open it, the ballerina dances around and around to the music. Oh, that's so much fun. So I put that in there, and that was about all. And I closed the suitcase and put it down on the floor like she said. Then I noticed on my nightstand was my Stuart Little book. It's a library book, and it's due tomorrow. I have to return that. So I tucked it under my arm, and I grabbed my stuffed tiger, which is my favorite. I've had him forever and ever. And then I grabbed the suitcase, and I headed out to the front where Mom was waiting. And just as I started to tell her what I had put in my suitcase, Bud came in the door. Now, Bud is brother. My big brother, he's 16, and he was getting home from football practice. Bud loves football, and he plays quarterback, which he says is the most important role on the team. Well, he talks about football a lot, and I don't know about football, but all I know is that his gym bag smells really, really bad. Well, Mom told him the same thing she told me. Go to his room and put a few more things in the suitcase. But then he started arguing with her. And he started yelling, and she started yelling back. And he said something about football game and school and can't go. And she says, "Yes, you can go. We're going to Grandma Nancy's." And he stomped off down the hallway yelling and kicking the wall and stuff. And she was right after him yelling too and stomping. And then the doors started slamming, and then it was quiet. I don't know what went on in that room, but when Mom came out, she was looking just really, really tired. She noticed Stuart Little in my arms, so she took that from me and she stuffed it into the gym bag. The smelly gym bag. I objected. I said, "Hey, that's a library book. I need to return it tomorrow. It's due tomorrow." "It's just a book," she said. "We'll deal with it later." Just a book, I thought. And I said, "No, Mom, that's Stuart Little. It has to go back." And she says, "Don't worry about it. We'll deal about it later." Well, Bud came from his room, and he'd said something to Mom, and she just kind of looked at him with that mom look. You know, we've all seen it. And he kind of gave her the stink eye, and they just stood there standing looking at each other for a minute, and then he put down his suitcase, and he stomped off the other direction. Well, just as he was stomping off again, the doorbell rang, and it was Cindy, Cindy's mom's friend. Mom's friend was taking us to the airport. So she came in and she helped us with all of our luggage and things. And we got out to the car, and Mom sat in front with Cindy, and they talked real quiet, like I couldn't hear what they were saying. And Bud and I sat in the back, and he was just looking all disgusted. But you know, he does that a lot anyway. So when we got to the airport, Cindy helped us with our bags, and then we got inside the airport and we went up to the counter, you know how you have to do, and we went up there and we put our bags on the scale or whatever that was, and Mom gave them some papers and they gave us some papers, and then they put some tags on the suitcases and things, and then the suitcases started going down the belt towards the back room, and all I could think of was that Stuart Little was stuck in that smelly gym bag all the way to Cincinnati. Oh, poor Stuart Little. Well, then Mom took my hand and we headed for the airport. Not the airport, I'm sorry. We headed for the airplane. And when we got there, I got to sit by the window, which is new because I don't usually get to take the window seat when we go see Grandma Nancy. And then Mama had the middle, and Bud sat on the edge there on the aisle, and he had his arms crossed, and he was just looking mad and kind of disgusted. And oh, but it was, like I say, that was kind of normal for my brother. When we arrived in Chicago, we went down to get our luggage, and Bud's gym bag wasn't there. So Mom went over and she talked to the guy at the counter, and they were looking at things, and she showed him some papers, and he did something with the computer. And then she came back and she told Bud that somehow or another his bag got separated from the others, and they were trying to find it. They would find, and they'd bring it to Grandma Nancy's probably tomorrow. Well, he muttered something, and he kicked the wall and started to stomp off, and then Grandma Nancy came around the corner. She gave us all hugs, and she gave Mom an extra hug, and all I could think was that Stuart Little was lost. He was someplace between home and Cincinnati. Where are you, Stuart? Stuart? Well, we headed to Nancy's house. She made us some tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches. That's my favorite. Then Bud and I headed to bed. I got Mom's old room, and even her books were in the room there, and that was kind of nice. I picked up a book, but it wasn't Stuart Little. Well, Mom and Grandma were up really late talking, and I think I heard Mama cry. The next day, the bag still wasn't delivered, and so Mom called, and they said they'd found it, and it would be out by the end of the day. Well, sure enough, at the end of the day, it arrived. The airline person brought it, knocked on the door, and handed it to Mom, and they talked a little bit, and then she had to sign something, and then she took it into the kitchen, and she put it on the floor, but it didn't look the same. It was in a plastic bag. Well, when Bud heard the door, he came running to get his gym bag, and he stood there in the kitchen, and he looked at it, and he and Mom unwrapped it from this plastic bag, and when they did, you should have smelled it. No, you shouldn't have smelled it. It was really, really bad, and it was all gooey. You know, I looked at it. What is that stuff? And then Mama explained. She said that apparently it had fallen off of the cart at the airport and got run over by the truck. And when it did, the can of squirt cheese that Bud had in there, that's his favorite snack, the can of squirt cheese exploded all over everything. And then it got warm and it got smelly. And oh my gosh, it smelled worse than it usually did. It was awful. Well, Bud kind of gave it a kick with his toe, and then he leaned against the wall and slid down the wall, sitting on the floor, and he sat there for a minute. Then he put his head in his hands and he started to cry. And then Mama sat down next to him and she started to cry. And then I sat down and I started to cry because Stuart Little was in that bag. Poor Stuart Little. He was all covered with stinky, stinky squirt cheese. Oh. So, back to my letter. So, Miss Jameson, I know I need to replace the book since it can't be returned covered with squirt cheese. So I am enclosing $6, which is all I have. I hope it's enough. Love, Mandy.